Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, welcome back.
Thank you.
I'd like to pick up a little bit on what Senator Tester was just talking about, the increased threat level. I just want to understand why we're not increasing the threat level. It sounds like we'll only increase it under the new system if there's a specific threat, as opposed to just a generalized threat level?
If there is specific, credible intelligence of a threat, yes, an advisory would go out. It can be elevated or it can be imminent. The idea or the thought behind this, and this was the product of a bipartisan commission co-chaired by former FBI Director Webster and Fran Townsend, who was President Bush's Homeland Security advisor. And then there were a number of experts on the commission. The idea is, instead of just putting out a color, is to actually give people information. An advisory itself, if we elevate, it might be restricted to, say, a particular transportation sector, or it might be restricted to a particular area of the country. And they are designed to expire on their own in 2 weeks so that we don't continually add advisory on advisory on advisory with the effect that nobody really pays attention anymore.
But if you increase the threat level, that does imply that certain actions are being taken, correct?
There would be certain actions taken associated with increased threat levels, yes.
And I'd say if there was ever just a generalized increase in the threat level, it would be in relation to an action that we just, you know, the successful capturing, killing of Osama bin Laden, correct? I mean, why I just don't quite understand why we wouldn't be increasing the threat level here.
Well, because
over a short period of time.
Well, and it's not. First of all, this is an ongoing evaluation. But at the time of the capture of bin Laden, and as of the time of yesterday, there was no specific credible threat of specific retaliation, other than generalized, there may be something that happens. Under that generalized sense, we already lean forward. We already ask people to help if they see something, to say something. We already have police departments doing suspicious activity reporting. We already have resources deployed at areas that have been of particular interest historically, like aviation. So that already happens. The idea behind the advisory system is that if we need to elevate a particular area, a particular sector of the country, that goes out, and we provide then as many facts as we can, and we provide then what we want people to do, how they can help the government, and how they can stay consistently informed. And if you go to disasteralerts.gov, there's a template for the advisory system and a briefing on how it works. It is new, and that's why I think people are still making that adjustment.
Okay. Well, let's get on border security. Last time you appeared before the committee, I was trying to determine what we need to do to secure the border. And one of the questions I asked you is, if it's a problem with resources, what would it cost to actually secure the border? And your answer really was, we have enough resources. So, kind of taking out from that point, do you have in your mind a multiple-step process? I mean, what are your priorities in terms of you have the resources? What steps are you going to take to actually get the border secured?
Well, they will be different between the southern and the northern borders. As I mentioned to Senator Collins, these are very different areas to secure. But it's a combination of manpower, it's a combination of technology, and it's a combination of infrastructure. We are constantly looking at a number of measures to adjudicate whether we are getting results for the investments we are making. And when you ask me whether we have enough resources, I realize, and I think we all realize, that we are in an era of depleted resources. And I have to figure this out, recognizing that in all likelihood, there's not another $600 million SUP that's going to come my way for the border. So how do we make best use of what we have? Well, we insist on accountability. We insist on producing results. And now I'm insisting that the CBP develop a better way to measure those results.
So I'm a little confused. Do you have enough resources or don't you?
We have the resource. I believe, Senator, that with the resources we have and the resources that the President has requested, which will sustain the record level of resources at the border. We've never had this kind of resource at the border. So the key is not more, the key is sustainment. So with those, with the SUP we already got, and sustainment, annualizing the SUP, which is what the President has asked be done in FY12, we will be able to continue our efforts at securing the border. The question is, and the challenge for the committee will be, and for the Senate will be, making sure we have an FY12 budget from which to work, because if we have to go back to a continuing resolution, we will have some problems.
Okay. I'm a numbers guy, so I'm liking the idea of some overall metric, because preparing for this hearing, there's just an awful lot of numbers, there's a lot of data, turning that into real information. I mean, is the concept here that we're going to have an overall single number index? And is that going to be by region? Is that going to be for the entire country? I mean, what is your concept in terms of a threat assessment or a, securing the border type of index?
I'm waiting for CBP, they are already in this process, to come back to me. But I believe it conceivable that we would have two different indices, one for the northern and one for the southern, because they are different. But I don't think we've concluded that. And the index may be a range, which would reflect overall efforts at the border. What I know for sure is looking at apprehensions alone doesn't cut it. Using the anachronistic term operational control also doesn't cut it. We need to have something more qualitative and quantitative that you can use in allocating resources and we can use as well.
I mean, even with the southern border, there's a vast difference in terms of our level of success, correct? I mean, wouldn't you want to have that index even by region along the different borders?
Well, we would anticipate using it sector by sector. I mean, there's a big difference between say the Yuma sector, which is very isolated, in which there's a lot of military land, and the Tucson sector, which is the busiest and is the one where we're putting the most resources right now. So even within one state, albeit the Yuma sector crosses a little bit into California, even within there we see a difference. So that's why I think any kind of index will probably have to reflect some sort of range.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.